Hi class, it's Marcella. Today we're going to talk about forestry measurements, and we're going to do this in a series of videos. So here is our data. Um, and before we kind of move into the measurements, let's first talk about our data. So we have 3 plots. We measured them on September 10th this year with a 10 BAF prism. So we're going to pretend we went into the field, we collected this data. So let's look at the data. And before you even get started with the data, it's really, really important to look at the data to see what it is. So we have our plot. So we have the 3 plots, 1, 2, 3. We have our species. We've got red pine, RP, white pine, WP, and jack pine, JP. We have our diameter in inches. We have our height in feet on a subset of trees because height takes a lot more to measure with the clinometer. And we have a crown ratio for every tree. So that crown ratio is how much of the crown is there. So what percent of the tree is made up of crowns. And it looks like it ranges from about 30 to about 50. And our diameters are around that 14 mark. So before you even get started analyzing your data, you want to check what it looks like. So there's a few ways we can do that, and we're going to start with that first. So one of the best ways is to see where your data is at. So we're going to use the min and max function. And that's especially great for diameters and heights to see if there's any typos. So we'll just put equal signs, and then in here we'll type min, and we'll select this whole range. So we'll select from C30 up to C3. Okay, min, a min of 12.8. That sounds pretty reasonable. And we can drag that across. Okay, so what are our minimum numbers that we're looking at? So 12.8, 62 feet, and a crown ratio of 10%. All reasonable numbers. Now let's look at our max. So we're going to do the same thing. So we're using that function. So we're going to put equals max, and then again select that same area. So C3 to C30. 150. So that looks like it's a typo, right? So a diameter of 150 feet for a red pine, jack pine, white pine stand. That seems a little off. So in this data set, one, since I know where it is, but also two, it's a smaller data set. You could scroll through or you could sort. And if you remember from that last video, always select the whole area. Because if we just select this area of diameter and do a sort, we'll mess up our data. So just to highlight that, ready? If we just sort here, in Excel, on a Mac, this is going to make sure it says, do you want to expand the selection? Of course we do. But if we just continue with the selection, all of a sudden our diameters are way off. All of a sudden the diameters no longer match our measurements. But we can see where that measurement is. So that's one way to do it. We can also use the edit, find, and find 150. And that will take us there. So that is likely a typo, right? It likely a missing diameter. So put that in. And a great thing with Excel, it updates automatically when you're using that function key. So our max, 26.3. Again, that seems great and reasonable. And we can scroll over, 86 for our height, again reasonable, and 50% for our crown ratio. Awesome. So far, these part of our data look great. So the other aspect that can be tricky is making sure your species, there wasn't a typo there. So an easy way to do that is to use insert a pivot table. And I love pivot tables. We'll talk about pivot tables a lot. So we can insert a pivot table right next to it. So we'll use the existing worksheet. So we can just put it right here. And this is just another chance to get comfortable using pivot tables. and we can put our species in our row column. Okay, so it looks like we've got jack pine, red pine. Oh, we've got an RRP. So it looks like we had a typo there. And then WP, white pine. Okay, so again, you can use that find and select. You can do a sort, or with the small data set, you can look through and see, oh, okay, I see where that mistake is made. Let's correct that. And then let's go to the pivot table area and refresh. Great, it looks like we're good with our data. So we have a clean data set that we can now use. I'm gonna stop this recording. So this is kind of getting the first initial setup started, and then we'll move into another recording. Before we stop this recording, a key thing to do is make sure you save a copy of your raw data. So this is your clean raw data. This is the data that hasn't been manipulated. You can go back to it. So always, especially as you move into fieldwork, as you move into different projects, those of you considering research, always save a copy of your raw data. Okay, we'll see you in a second with actually doing the forestry measurements in the next video. Thanks.